What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I bring you the rebels that are shaping our culture. We find out how they do it, why they do it, and what you can do to get a little piece of the pie for yourself. We're also the only show to bring you new music every week from our friends over at EDM.com. I'm your host, Josh Levine, and check it out. I'm coming at you once again this week from the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity. It's the annual gathering of the global advertising marketing industries held in Cannes, France. I get down there to meet interesting people and bring them to you on our show. So I got to sit at the YouTube Beach Club on the beautiful Croisette in Cannes with Kevin Allocca. He's the head of trends and culture at YouTube. He had a great TED Talk. He's got a great book out, and he's helping people all around the world understand why certain videos go viral and what they can do to make their content better. And so we talk about his path personally from his background in journalism into what he does at YouTube and how he manages to stay awake watching video after video for what seems like his entire life. And just some insights that he gets into what's happening with culture from his perspective. It's a great talk. It's short. You'll hear maybe some background noise from all the goings on at the Beach Club. But now let's get into it with Kevin Allocca.
I skimmed through who was on the show and I was like, this is legit. So,
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. It's about people that are making careers out of creativity.
Yeah.
And building culture. And obviously, not only is YouTube such a huge part of culture, but, you seem to be kind of stepping out with the book and speaking. And, it's funny, I was thinking about how the founders of the big social media companies are household names. Mm-hmm. They've kind of become rock stars. People don't really know who founded YouTube. Mm-hmm. And, it's and the company in general has kind of kept a low profile.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to talk a little bit about kind of you and your journey.
Sure.
And why you're doing that. But I always like to start with a question back from the beginning. Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
Yes. So, this is a good question. So I remember, when I was cognizant of it, when I could buy it. When I was
not
like
like mom got
thing.
it for
exactly.
you. Right.
So I could think of two. The first tape was Whoop, There It Is. I was growing up in Miami,
nice.
So at the time, so that sound was like everywhere.
I mean, in Miami, it's required.
Yes, absolutely. It was part of the education of growing up in Miami.
Yeah.
And the first CD was Ace of Base.
Okay.
Because that album was like blowing up right then.
Sure.
And now I'm like, I can't believe that's my legacy. Is my first album was the Sign or whatever.
Oh man, that's crazy. And do you remember the first time you discovered YouTube?
That's a good question. I think so YouTube would have launched when I was like in my going into my senior year of college, and there was definitely a culture of sharing clips around the dorms and stuff, and we're like E-Bombs World and all these other sites were like really popular at that time.
Sure.
And then people started sharing YouTube clips. I don't remember what the first video was. It was probably like some weird dance video or something.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of like kind of those fun, random international clips. That's what I remember most in the early days. Like, wow, this weird clip from Japan, stuff that I would never be able to see.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, YouTube. It kind of like, obviously I remember a time before YouTube, and I have a 9-year-old son, so we use it daily to like look stuff up that he's trying to understand or learn, or he plays music, so he's constantly. But it also sort of feels like it's always been there. Mm-hmm. Very much different to say a Twitter or Facebook, where they had this kind of explosion of virality. Yeah. Where YouTube's kind of had that for videos, but the service has just sort of become part of our daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, it was the social video infrastructure of the entire internet.
Yeah.
And now, like, there are lots of other
Sure.
platforms that have video built into them, but I think the search quality of it, the ability to just go and retrieve whatever you're looking for, is the one of the unique defining things about it. Like
Yeah.
the volume mixed with that technology,
Yeah.
and that makes it like feel like it feels similar to Google in that way, where it's like I don't remember what it was like when I like had to go look up a definition in an actual dictionary.
It was the worst.
This stuff, yeah,
It was terrible.
yeah.
I just remember like not knowing stuff. We're here in Europe, beautiful Cannes, and I came here when I was 18, and like we didn't know anything, and we didn't have any way of finding out other than dated travel books, which we weren't going to read.
Right, yeah.
And so you just stumble your way through, and now it's like a completely different experience.
It absolutely is. It's changed. I mean, how you even book rooms here, and like how
Yeah.
you like find out, what you want to eat for dinner. It's like it's
all of
crazy.
it, for sure. If you were going to be a YouTuber, what kind of videos would you make?
Ooh, good question. So I used to make videos when I started my career at the Huffington Post doing political satire, and we used to do these like mashup videos. And so I used to be very obsessed with like remix culture and that stuff, but I love the video essay format, where people kind of like do deep critiques of things using lots of clips. It's become increasingly popular, and it's stuff I love watching, and so that's probably what I would end up making, because I think that people are always, a lot of people ask me like, I think I have an idea for a YouTube channel, or now they're like, I think I have an idea for a book or whatever. The same principles apply, which is like, what do you want to just be obsessed with for a very extended amount of time?
Yeah.
And for most people, the question between like what's a good business opportunity for them and what they want to be obsessed with doesn't always align.
Right.
But when those two things do align, that's how you can do it.
Well, that seems to be the problem for brands, I think. And I'm always fascinated. I work with brands in my kind of day job, and it seems like, I know this isn't exactly true, but it seems like it's easy for some random kid to get, a viral video and a huge number of followers, and yet the biggest brands in the world really struggle with it. It feels like it's what you're saying, right? That the kid is just making stuff that he loves.
Yeah, I mean, there's the challenge for a lot of brands who are trying to compete in the same way with that type of content.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a lot of very effective paths that like don't go that route.
Sure.
But like for those that do, I mean, you're competing against like pure authenticity, people who are just themselves, like actual individual people. It's very hard, and you see brands that are able to do it, but it's very difficult to sort of create the same dynamic as a real person, as a company. And there are companies that are able to do that, but it's you're at an inherent like disadvantage already, because you're sort of the medium is built around personality and conversation and communication.
So what is the right way for brands? What do you see brands doing that not only gets like a lot of views, but you're the trends and culture guy, right? So who are the brands that are actually impacting culture through video?
I mean, there are a lot now. I think this week you hear a lot of people talking about Nike, right? And the way that I think a lot of brands are successful. And someone mentioned this at a panel that I was at yesterday, is by being a platform for people, right? Like you get that. That's another sort of tactic that you can employ, which is like, okay, like we are a company, but this person's values align with our values. Like we can give them a platform to speak. And so you see that a lot. You see other brands that are experimenting with like, okay, we're going to actually try to understand this space, this environment. We're going to make ASMR advertisements. We're going to make untraditional types of content. We're going to partner with like creators that actually know how to navigate this space and that can represent us in a way that aligns with what we want to say and be about. There's like, it's really funny actually who is good at this. It's not always like just about money really, or about like strategy and things. I was just in Germany with Angela, and everybody was telling me about how the German army is like very successful at creating like series that really connect with people.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
It's like I remember years ago, like the Department of Transportation in the U.S. like had a whole thing with Rhett and Link that was like really successful about how to like not text and drive and stuff. And it's like it wasn't all about just like dumping money places. It was about just being really thoughtful about like, what are we trying to say? Who can we work with to do something creative? And I think that like that's kind of what Cannes is meant to celebrate, I suppose, is people are able to do that successfully. You know?
Yeah. So talk about this idea of trends and culture within YouTube. Why does YouTube need a head of culture, and why are you the right person for that? I've seen you talk about, you have a background in journalism. You're not a marketer. So tell me about that.
Yeah, sure. So it started because it's kind of, I think the evolution of it is kind of interesting. Where like when I started, I had been a journalist for a little bit. I had been a comedy writer before that. I knew a lot about pop culture. I knew a lot about the media industry from when I covered that beat. Yeah. And YouTube was just simply trying to there was this idea that all these viral videos were out there that everybody was talking about. It was becoming pop culture. This is like 2010. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the news networks and things like couldn't find them. They just didn't know where, like what was legit, what was happening. And then meantime, at the same time, you had a lot of these major events that were happening that were being documented entirely through web video. Arab Spring happened a couple weeks after I had started. So there was this idea of could we use data and observation and things to try to aggregate a lot of this stuff to help other people find it. Turns out that yes, that was very helpful for journalists, but there's lots of applications for that. And so eventually that bled into how we talk to advertisers. It bled into how we talk to our consumers. We bled into how we do our campaigns. So I ran YouTube Rewind for many years, just our big end of the year kind of to do. I work on a lot of different product features that actually surface and help people discover what's popular on the site. The thing is YouTube is so big, and there's so many different activities that are happening all at once that to actually just get a sense for what are the big things that people are talking about, the app is not designed to show you that. It's designed to show you what you want to watch, right? And so when people have those questions, which can be as simple as what is the biggest video, in Mexico of all time, someone's got to answer those questions, and we are that team, thankfully, which is really fun. And I learned a lot of what I know on the job and through just developing my own skills, working with data, working with product and engineering teams, and now I feel like I'm in a whole other world and place from where I was when I was a journalist and a comedy writer. But I still I still rely on those skills all the time, because that's it's all about sort of curiosity and inquiry.
So how do you think about that then as a boss? Because I know you have a team now.
Yeah, I am.
And how much do you kind of allow people to come learn on the job versus what they're walking in the door with? Are you conscious about those choices?
Yeah, I definitely think about it a lot when I'm hiring, and I take risks, which we'll see if they pay off all the time. Yeah. But I think sometimes what I really try to prioritize is people who can express themselves well, but be incredibly curious and are plugged in all the time. If you can combine those things, you can get pretty far, I think. Yeah. And you can learn a lot, because there's not that many people who could possibly have that similar of an experience. Sure. So we've got people who are video producers on the team. We've got people who are journalists. A lot of people who are journalists on the team. We've got people who were who've worked in other sort of creative gigs and stuff. None of them have a marketing background. None of us do. We a lot of what we do serves a marketing end, but requires a different skill set from traditional marketing. So I think at the end of the day, what works for us is not just being able to run. You can hire all the data analysts you want, but it's a combination of humans and data that you need to really interpret what's happening.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier how you've kind of stepped out, at least to be one of the faces of the brand, with Videocracy, the book, and the TED Talk. What does that do? How does that change the game for you? How does it change kind of your daily life after a TED Talk or a book?
I mean, it's really confused the hell out of my parents, to be honest. So I don't get you, but you're on TV, but then you're also doing, it's they're very
on the computer.
Yeah, it's just really funny, and they're great about it, and they really love it. They love it. There's no greater treasure to them than when I'm on morning TV, so they can brag about it to everybody. But
of course,
that just all sort of happened. I think I have done public speaking a long time, and when the opportunity for TED came up, and the talk went really well. There's a huge appetite for people to not always be talked to about what's happening at YouTube, what the developments are in terms of our product and our business, but to understand the content in a deeper way, because YouTube is for you, And so for many people whose businesses rely on interacting with it, their perspective of it is shaped by whatever it is that they experience on the site or what their friends tell them or whatever. And so there's a real value to that. So then, like, once that happened, like, I get tons of speaking stuff all the time, and sometimes it's really interesting. And so I go, like, I get to come here and speak at this. And then through the course of that, I got approached by a literary agent who was like, I'd love to, like, he's like, what do you think about writing a book? And he's like, about your TED Talk. And I was like, well, it's like a 7-minute talk that is mostly videos. But I actually think there's a book that is about this that would be super interesting. And we got, like, really excited about it. And then, I spent basically, 2 years, pulling it all together. Wow. And, which, speaks to how you got to really be passionate about something. In that amount of time, took a lot of time, took sabbatical from the office and stuff.
Oh, wow.
But it was fascinating because the biggest outcome of all these things is it actually just gets me my understanding much deeper, because you have to spend the time synthesizing your perspective on stuff. Just like when you write something or when you interview someone, you're like forced to like collect your thoughts about what that thing actually means. And so that's how you get a lot smarter about stuff. And so at the end of the thing that's like had the biggest impact for me is I just like feel like I know a lot more now because I've like had to spend that time collecting those things. And it's been like it's super fun. I get to meet lots of interesting people because of it. And I think the biggest thing is that like I'm not the traditional executive that speaks at stuff, so I get to like tell a different type of story, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's very YouTube of you,
I guess.
I want to talk about music for a minute. I know you have to go get on stage. So obviously music's been a huge part of YouTube from the beginning, pre-streaming. And so how is music changing on the site in the current era of Spotify and Apple and all that?
Yeah, I think there's, and this is one of the things I'm going to talk about in this speech I'm about to give. One of the first things that's super interesting is I think a lot of our traditional concepts of genre are starting, and you hear this a lot, like this genre fluidity that's happening in music, and you really see it on YouTube, right?
Sure.
Like we track a bunch of records, right? So we track like the biggest 24-hour debut of a music video.
Right.
It's been broken twice so far this year, both by K-pop groups like BTS and Blackpink, right?
Yep.
If you look at the most viewed music videos globally last year, 8 of the top 10 are in Spanish. Which is like so we have this language thing that's happening. You have like in the US we just say like we call Spanish language music Latin, right? But it's like that's kind of like it would be like calling like all American music American, you know, like it's just like it doesn't really there's a million different genres of things and like and so but now but it used to be limited to these different sort of channels in which were built around those genres, and now it's not. We freely kind of mix genres when we're consuming stuff because recommendation algorithms aren't really built around those types of taxonomies, So the genre thing is changing. I think you also have this rise of like people who don't need to go through traditional distribution channels to get discovered. My favorite story, Lil Nas X right now, he's a guy just trying to make it happen from Atlanta. He's like 19 or 20 now, and he puts out his stuff and like spreads it through memes, and now it's the biggest song in the world. And that like he would have had to go through an entirely different process, and now he's with a label and like they're helping him grow his career and everything, which there's a hugely important role the labels play in developing talent, but you don't necessarily need to start there anymore, and you can prove yourself in different ways. So you get lots of different voices and like perspectives and genres that we wouldn't have seen before, and where that stuff is coming from is totally different. Like I listened to I grew up in Miami, so there's a bit more Spanish music, Latin music around, but like I listen to so little music from outside the U.S. and now like we just have access to all this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And you could see internationally how much like hip hop is a thing like all over the world. Like there's a version of hip hop in every possible culture. German hip hop is like huge.
Sure.
And
do you have a favorite German hip hop act?
Oh, there are plenty.
Yeah, and
it's funny how it now is becoming a thing again. So it was a thing when I was growing up, and then it was kind of died down, and then there's like this completely whole era. And to be honest, only because YouTube exists and all these kids go ahead, upload their stuff, upload their videos, and have this massive audience where 10 or 15 years ago they would really have like needed all the money to become popular and famous, and that's not needed anymore. So
amazing.
I mean, it's introducing all these kind of interesting questions about appropriation and stuff as well. But like, I think it's it's fascinating to watch that all unfold.
So how, I have this weird relationship. Like on the one hand, I appreciate access to all this information, and I benefit from it daily. On the other hand, there's this impending feeling that we're just constantly drowning in content. And, I think streaming video in particular, but music too, is like there's more great stuff than I'll ever be able to listen to for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Already existing. Forget about what's created and uploaded every single day, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure you have, similar experience, I imagine. And yet, so we have this kind of need for curation and algorithms and that, and then that comes under fire when we see those misused, or even sometimes people just don't understand how they work.
Yeah.
So, what's your view of that? How do you see it, and how does YouTube kind of see the balance between curation and self-discovery, and where the hand is too heavy and all of that?
Yeah. So I think the way that we think about it is how do you make sure that how do you create an environment where anybody's voice can, that is within reason, can get accessed by other people, right? How can you make sure that you don't have to be greenlit by somebody? How do you make sure that you don't have to go through a traditional channels to be discovered, while at the same time maintaining a high level of responsibility around what is contained in those, both in the pool of stuff that exists on the site and what we recommend to people, and what gets ads put against it, And you have to think about all those things in increasingly nuanced ways, because YouTube is this reflection of all of humanity in a way, right? It inherits all the different perspectives and things that are happening in different places, and so those challenges are constantly evolving and things. So you have to kind of attack each of those challenges specifically and directly. So I don't think because of the scale that we're at, which is 500 hours of content every minute being uploaded, you have to use personalization and recommendations to give people the experience they want, and it's what's enabled kind of so many of these young voices to get discovered, and people to connect around things that they never had, just to be able to see people on screen that they never were able to see on screen before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there have to be guidelines, and there have to be structures in place to review and to maintain the quality of those pools of content.
YouTube's created this industry of influencers among other platforms, right? And people whose job it is to be celebrities on the platform. And I think we've seen a lot of those people are now starting businesses and trying to sell products with varying success. But for me, I think we sort of overuse the term influence to just mean anyone that can capture anyone's attention.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
We in my mind, there's a separation between someone who's able to get views and clicks versus someone who's able to sell. And so how do you think about that, whether it's in what brands are doing on the platform, or the creators?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's simply about relevance, right? Sometimes it really works when you have a brand that has a product that aligns well with a creator that talks about that genre of thing, or their audience is interested in that type of thing and stuff. And so sometimes it's as simple as, okay, this person is credible on this topic, so that's the person that you want to be engaged with. So if this is a person you go to for tech reviews, that's who you'd want to be advertising with in terms of their if you're a technology company, or if you're you see it all over the beauty industry, right? The beauty industry is heavily invested now in that world, because those are people who are credible on that thing. So it really actually comes down to credibility and things, and part of why the YouTube crowd has been so successful is video and frequent connection over video really builds a rapport and a trust, I think, that people have. And a lot of these, you said these people, their job is to be professional celebrities or whatever, and it's that happened to be their job in a way. For a lot of them, they didn't set out to necessarily. Now they're starting to see it more, but a lot of them, it just sort of happened, and so they wanted to talk about one thing, or they wanted to just connect with lots of people around one thing, and then it turns out that connection has value, you know, in the market. So, you know, I think that for us, there's like different ways to think about it. One is like, okay, can you partner with creators, or can you do branded content, or are there sort of like right pairings? But then there's also like, okay, how do we just make sure that we target the right audience, or, you know, for the content category that you're interested in, through the right types of ad formats, which can also be really effective. And it's less about the influencer, quote unquote, influence, and more about the audiences that are able to come in and they're able to capture that aren't really anywhere else to be able to grab.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I have a little lightning round before I let you go.
Cool.
Couple quick questions. What's your favorite city to travel to?
Paris.
I'm going there after this.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I'll hit you up for recommendations.
Yeah, I love it.
Who's your favorite DJ?
Oh man, this is really hard. Oh man, what is it? I'm blanking on RJD2.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
What is the last great book you read?
What did I read that was really good? I really loved. I've read some other books that were really good after this, but I loved John Ronson's "So You've Been Publicly Shamed."
Oh yeah.
Just I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
Why? What?
Well, I just think it's like
resonates
he's such a great storyteller,
It's a great
but
book.
he captured this very modern phenomenon that makes you feel powerless sometimes, but also like makes you feel really thoughtful when I look at things that are playing out online. Like, you know, I spend a lot of my life on Twitter, on YouTube, on different social media platforms, and you
Sure.
see these phenomena playing out, and you just realize how quickly something can spiral because of the contextual elements of it. And I think he really captured that in an interesting way.
Yeah. What movie have you seen the most in your life?
Braveheart, like
Oh, okay.
when I was in like,
That's a heavy lift.
When,
That's not
I know,
like,
but when I was in middle school, I was for some reason obsessed with this movie, and like
Really?
I would like watch it all the time. And it's
Yeah.
like now I'm a little bit like, that's kind of a weird one, but it's fact.
I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Tell me one decision that changed your life forever.
Okay, so when I was leaving, I went to school in Boston. I was leaving Boston, and I should have gone to LA because I wanted to be a comedy writer, and like, and I had a bunch of friends that were just moving to New York, and I was like, you know what? It would be like, this is my one shot to be 23 in New York, so I'm just gonna go to New York for a year and like just try to figure it out. And I did, and then it just totally changed my entire life. I wouldn't probably be working in technology, like I'm now like full through and through New Yorker, but that small thing of being like, maybe I'll push LA back. Like, changed my life. Yeah.
And finally, if I worked on your team,
Yeah.
what's something I would hear you say over and over?
It would be don't assume you understand something, because I think like where we get into trouble all the time is like thinking we know why something is popular, or thinking we know how popular something is, when we have the ability to actually just spend a couple extra minutes to like unpack that thing, because half the time it's not what you think it is.
Really?
You know, yeah, like there's just so many like my favorite story in the book that I wrote is about these elevator videos, and I found these guys who were posting hundreds of videos of insides of elevators, just like filming elevators up and down. And I was like, man, people are just so weird on the internet.
Why would they do that?
And then I interviewed him for the book, and he's like, he had Asperger's, and he said that 75% of his audience were people with autism.
Wow.
And that like for people who are autistic, like there's for people with autism, there is a certain element of that is really impactful for them. And so like it's actually an autism outreach channel that looks like an elevator video channel.
Wow.
It's like, man, I don't know anything.
Yeah, you wouldn't have caught that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have figured that out.
So you
on
can't
your own.
assume.
Wow. That's great. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for
doing
doing
it.
it.
Yeah, that was Kevin Allocca from YouTube on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you leave us a comment on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you like. We're at Rebel Radio Net. We're putting up videos every week from different episodes. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.